Ladies and gentlemen, what you're about to hear is the story of a celebration that was meant to unite three nations, but is instead driving them apart in front of the entire world. In just a few days, the biggest sporting event on the planet kicks off across North America. The 2026 World Cup, 48 teams, 104 matches, hosted by the United States, Canada, and Mexico, all at once for the first time. It was sold as a celebration of unity, a handshake between neighbors, a month-long party with no borders. But here's the truth nobody on that opening stage will say out loud. This tournament has quietly turned into a referendum on Donald Trump's America. On the other side of that referendum is a man who spent the past year refusing to blink. Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada. By the end of this, you'll see exactly how a soccer tournament became the clearest split screen ever of two visions for North America. One built on pressure, the other on welcome, and why the next 6 weeks could decide much more than just a gold trophy. So let's start with what actually happened, because the warning signs were there from day one. Go back to March 7th last year. President Trump walks into the Oval Office, flanked by Vice President J.D. Vance and Gianni Infantino, president of World Soccer's governing body. Trump signs an executive order creating a White House task force for the 2026 World Cup. Then, in a move that says everything, he names himself chairman. Not a sports official, not a diplomat, the President of the United States, personally in charge. A reporter asks a fair question. How can this tournament work when you're co-hosting with Canada and Mexico, the same neighbors you just slapped with 25% tariffs? And Trump's answer is striking. He smiles and says, "Tension is a good thing. It makes it much more exciting. Tension is a good thing." Remember that line. It becomes the theme of this story. Running the task force under Trump is Andrew Giuliani, yes, Rudy Giuliani's son. He tells reporters the administration wants the World Cup to be a global moment of unity, as welcoming as possible. Beautiful words. But then confirms there will be no exemptions for fans from countries on Trump's travel ban and doesn't rule out targeting undocumented people at the matches themselves. Count the cost. Dozens of nations are affected by the travel restrictions, and 4 qualified teams, Iran, Haiti, Ivory Coast, and Senegal, face them. In some cases, normal tourist visas for fans to attend are off the table. Think about that. Haiti, in the World Cup for the first time in over 50 years, and most of their fans can't set foot in the host country. It gets sharper. 5 African qualifiers, including Algeria, Cape Verde, Ivory Coast, Senegal, and Tunisia, face a $15,000 visa bond just to enter the U.S, economic exclusion dressed up as national security. Then came the humiliation. The team set to play the tournament's first match, South Africa, Bafana Bafana to their fans, returning after 16 years, couldn't board their flight to Mexico because visas weren't processed in time. Players and staff sat stranded while officials scrambled. South Africa's sports minister called it embarrassing, grossly unfair, and said the team was made to look like fools. The U.S consulate worked through the weekend to fix it, and the team finally left a day late, losing precious time to adjust before their biggest match. Their opening opponent? Co-host Mexico at Estadio Azteca on June 11th. The team nearly missed its flight over a visa wall. So ask yourself, if a national team with a charter jet and a cabinet minister fighting for them can get stuck at an airport over paperwork, what chance does an ordinary family of fans have? That's the American side. Pressure, walls, deposits, tension as a feature, not a bug. Now look north. While all this happened, Mark Carney acted deliberately and quietly. He didn't pick a public fight. He let the contrast speak. Canada is investing $755 million into soccer infrastructure, training, youth programs, and grassroots development. Toronto and Vancouver position themselves as the welcoming, well-organized, drama-free alternative, and fans noticed. Rolling Stone reported international supporters, especially from Africa, openly considering skipping the U.S for Canada or Mexico instead, saying, "If you cannot go to Mexico, then let's go to Canada." When the Prime Minister welcomed the World Cup trophy in late May, he didn't talk tariffs. He told a story. 40 years ago, as a boy, he watched every game of the 1986 World Cup in his basement. That was the image Carney wanted the world to see, not a fortress, but a kid in a basement who loved the game. Now the two sides are clear. South of the border, a president who says tension is exciting. North, a prime minister talking about a boy in a basement, and a country that wants to be the welcoming option. This isn't just soccer anymore. It's two competing visions for North America. To really understand why this is happening, look at the calendar this summer alongside the World Cup. In July, almost exactly when the tournament is underway, the North American trade agreement binding these three countries comes up for formal review. This deal governs cars, steel, aluminum, and energy across the continent. Trump has openly considered pulling the U.S out and has already imposed tariffs on Canadian automobiles, steel, aluminum, and forest products. The formal review begins in July, the same month as the World Cup final, and that timing isn't coincidental, it's deliberate. The World Cup and trade fight are happening simultaneously in front of a global audience, and both men know it. Why is Trump pushing so hard? Leverage. He believes pressure gets better deals. He told reporters tension makes things exciting, meaning in trade as much as soccer. He broke off tariff talks with Canada last October over a single TV ad aired in the U.S. called Canada, the 51st State, referred to Carney as a governor, as if Canada were a U.S province, and revived that line days before the tournament. Carney's motivation is the mirror image. He promised to resist this pressure, campaigned against tariffs, and opposed annexation talk. In March last year, he declared the era of close U.S relations was over, and Washington was no longer reliable. At the World Economic Forum in Davos, he said the world is in rupture, not transition. When Trump revived the 51st state insult, Carney didn't explode. He stayed calm and focused on trade. Canada's conservative opposition leader called the idea ridiculous, but Carney's calm sent its own message. Pressure rolls off him, and that calm is power. Here's the twist commentators often miss. These two aren't just enemies. At the official World Cup draw in December at the Kennedy Center, Carney flew down, charmed, bantered with Trump, and held a private 45-minute meeting. Trump publicly praised their tremendous working relationship and, after Canada lifted some retaliatory tariffs, told reporters, "I like Carney a lot, and also, you're the 51st state." Warm words and cold threats often in the same week. Who holds the stronger hand? Both have real cards. Trump's obvious advantage: 78 of 104 matches are in the U.S, including both semifinals and the final. Canada and Mexico get 13 matches each. Most money, eyeballs, and security spending flow through the U.S. Trump controls visas, borders, and who gets in. He holds the biggest stack of chips. But Carney is playing a different game: contrast. Every time a team gets stranded, a fan faces a $15,000 bond, or the U.S is called a fortress. Canada looks calmer, steadier, more welcoming by comparison. Carney doesn't have to win the argument. He just stands still and lets the contrast work for him. Over time, that contrast shapes more than a tournament. It shapes where the world invests, studies, holds conferences, and does business for years. And the third player, Mexico under President Claudia Sheinbaum, matters too. Mexico faces the same pressures, trying to preserve trade while facing tariffs and threats. Carney quietly patches Canada's relationship with Mexico and builds trade ties beyond North America, including Europe and, controversially, China, which triggered Trump to threaten 100% tariffs if Canada became a drop-off port for Chinese goods. This isn't a simple two-man duel. It's a continental chess match with the European Union and Mexico very much on the board. So where does this go from here? Most likely, the tournament goes ahead as scheduled because the financial stakes are enormous, and FIFA expects to earn the bulk of its tens of billions in revenue. Nothing short of catastrophe will stop it. But the atmosphere, attendance from overseas fans, and the economic boost the U.S anticipated will all fall short, thanks to travel bans, visa walls, and general hostility scaring away the very fans who should fill the stadiums. Another scenario: the contrast between the U.S and Canada hardens into something permanent. Canada emerges from the summer as the stable, open brand, giving Carney real leverage when the trade review heats up, because the world has just seen in real time which neighbor plays well with others. And then there's the wild card. Something goes wrong on the ground. A fan detained at a border crossing, a team delayed again, an incident that escalates because security is already on edge. In that moment, Trump's "tension is exciting" versus Carney's "quiet welcome" stops being a talking point and becomes front-page news globally. Bottom line, the 2026 World Cup was meant to be a postcard of North American friendship. Instead, it's the clearest test ever of two opposite bets on power. Trump bets that pressure wins, that tension as a feature and the biggest stack of chips take the pot. Carney bets on patience, believing that in a world full of walls, the country that simply opens its door ends up holding the most valuable thing: trust. One of them will be proven right this summer, not on a debate stage, not in a press release, but in stadiums, airports, and at trade tables with the entire planet watching. And here's a question for you. When the final whistle blows in July, which bet will have paid off? The pressure of Trump's America or the patience of Carney's Canada? Tell me where you stand and which country you'd actually feel comfortable traveling to right now. That answer alone might reveal how this story ends. If you want to keep following, because this is far from over, make sure you're subscribed. The trade review in July will bring everything to a boil, and I'll be right here breaking it down for you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. So, where does all of this lead? Let's look at the most realistic outcomes based on what we know today. First, the tournament moves forward as planned because the financial stakes are simply too high. FIFA is counting on this event to generate the vast majority of its revenue, and nothing short of a major crisis is likely to derail it. But even if the matches go ahead, the atmosphere may not match expectations. International attendance could fall short, and the economic boost many expected for the United States may never fully materialize if travel restrictions, visa hurdles, and broader concerns keep fans from making the trip. A second possibility is that the contrast between the countries becomes even more pronounced. Canada could emerge from the summer with a stronger reputation, the steady, welcoming, dependable neighbor. If that happens, Carney may find himself entering trade negotiations with an advantage that has little to do with tariffs and everything to do with perception. The world will have spent weeks watching how each country presents itself on the global stage. Then there is the wild card scenario. All it takes is one incident, a supporter detained at a border crossing, another team caught in bureaucratic delays, or a security issue that spirals into a larger story. If that happens, the difference between Trump's belief that tension is a good thing and Carney's quieter approach could instantly become international headlines. At its core, that is what this World Cup has become. It was supposed to showcase friendship across North America. Instead, it has turned into a real-world test of two completely different ideas about power. Trump is betting that pressure works, that strength comes from leverage, and that the side with the biggest advantages ultimately wins. Carney is betting on something else entirely, that in a world filled with barriers, the country that chooses openness gains something far more valuable: trust. One of those approaches will look stronger by the time this summer ends, not because of a speech or a campaign event, but because of what people experience in airports, stadiums, hotels, and meeting rooms, while the entire world is watching. So here's the question. When the final whistle sounds in July, which approach do you think will come out ahead? The pressure-driven model promoted by Trump, or the patient, measured approach represented by Carney? Let me know where you stand, and tell me something else. If you were planning a trip today, which country would you feel most comfortable visiting? The answer might reveal more about the future of this story than any political speech ever could. And if you want to follow how this unfolds, stay tuned, because the trade review coming in July could push all of these tensions to the surface. I'll be here covering every development as it happens. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.